A friend of mine asked me to explain why I wrote my songs and what were the meaning behind them. I thought that was a great idea, so I'm going to try to do that for each song. This song, Impossible Love, was born from one of the most painful and confusing experiences of my life. Loving someone who disappeared without explanation while I was still trying to understand what went wrong. If you've ever loved an avoidant or been ghosted by someone you cared about deeply, this story may feel very familiar. This was the first song I wrote after this difficult and painful relationship ended, and at the time I was heartbroken and confused. Writing lyrics was part of my way of processing my feelings. The person I loved left suddenly. She slipped out of my life while I was at work. No warning, no goodbye, no explanation. She read my messages, didn't reply, and eventually ghosted me completely. And the silence almost hurt more than the loss. I wasn't angry. I just couldn't understand how someone could go from affection to coldness so quickly, from closeness to distance, from I love you to nothing. Later on, I learned something important. Avoidants often don't leave because they stop caring. They leave because closeness terrifies them. They feel exposed, vulnerable, and emotionally naked, and their nervous system treats that as danger. When an avoidant feels too deeply, it threatens their illusion of control. They start associating the person they love with emotional chaos inside themselves. The fear becomes so overwhelming that love flips into what looks like anger, resentment, or indifference, not because they don't feel love, but because love makes them feel unsafe. That's why loving an avoidant can feel like being punished for the very thing you offered, closeness and connection. This song came from trying to make sense of that dynamic. Around that time, I started experimenting with AI animation. It was quirky, it made mistakes, but somehow that made it feel honest. I created 2 characters inspired by tattoos we had. She got a sloth with my name, and I got a dragonfly with her name. The sloth became Silas, an empathic, gentle soul who rides a horse named Blaze. The dragonfly became Dalila, fragile, beautiful, and caught in emotional mud she couldn't escape. In the story, Silas finds Dalila sinking in a dark swamp. He lifts her out, places her gently on Blaze, and brings her back to his cabin. He nurtures her back to health. He protects her. He stays patient through her fears. Their relationship grows, or at least, Silas believes it does. But gradually, he notices something heartbreaking. He gives, and she can't receive. Every bit of love he pours in drips straight through her, like filling a colander with water. Dalila doesn't mean to hurt him, but she's controlled by fear and emotional paralysis. She hides behind walls even she doesn't understand. One day when Silas finally speaks up, she vanishes. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. Silas is devastated. He questions himself. He wonders what he did wrong. He tries to understand her trauma, tries to decode her silence, tries to figure out if she was avoidant, fearful, dismissive, borderline, narcissistic, anything that could explain the pain. But then he learns something crucial. The label doesn't matter. The impact does. Getting hit by a car hurts the same whether the driver was drunk, distracted, or intentional. Trauma may explain a person's behavior, but it does not erase your injury. In the story, Silas eventually shifts his focus inward. He starts healing himself. He rebuilds his self-worth. He learns boundaries. He stops rescuing people who refuse to rescue themselves. And as he heals, he becomes magnetic. Suddenly, other animals in the forest see his value. He attracts genuine connection, the kind that doesn't require him to shrink or fix or overfunction. That was my healing too. Impossible Love came from that emotional landscape, loving someone I couldn't reach no matter how much I tried. The lyrics describe a relationship where love feels close but never fully accessible, where the person you care about is always just out of reach, where the connection feels real but fragile, where every step toward closeness triggers their instinct to run. It's a song about longing, a song about confusion, a song about trying to hold a flame that keeps going out in the rain, a song about loving someone who fears being loved. This video isn't just about my story. It's about patterns many people experience, especially empaths and INFJs who fall for avoidance. Here are some insights I learned the hard way. 1. Avoidants often turn love into resistance. Not because they don't care, but because caring threatens their sense of emotional protection. Love makes them feel exposed, and exposure triggers panic. The person they love most becomes the person they defend against. 2. Avoidants often minimize your worth, not consciously, but as a survival strategy. If they convince themselves you're not that important, they can justify pulling away without feeling the weight of what they're losing. It's defensive self-preservation, not truth. 3. When you leave, the illusion breaks. Avoidants often realize your value only after you're gone. These moments crack their denial. Seeing someone else treat you with the kindness they withheld. Realizing they can't replace your emotional depth. Seeing you happy, confident, and glowing after the relationship. Discovering that what you needed wasn't too much. It was normal. This is where avoidants confront reality. Your love wasn't excessive. Their capacity was limited. 4. Diagnosing them won't save you. You can spend months asking, are they fearful avoidant, dismissive avoidant, narcissistic, borderline, trauma bonded? But all roads lead to the same truth. If their behavior harms you, the reason doesn't erase the damage. Understanding their trauma won't stop yours. 5. Boundaries aren't punishment, they're protection. Empaths often give endlessly, hoping love can heal fear. But love is not meant to be self-sacrifice. Your role is not to regulate someone else's nervous system. Your job is not to soften their every trigger. Your value is not proven by enduring emotional starvation. You deserve reciprocity. You deserve consistency. You deserve someone who chooses you without running from the feeling. Writing Impossible Love gave me the closure she never gave me. It helped me see that her silence wasn't my fault. Her avoidance wasn't my responsibility. Her inability to stay wasn't a reflection of my worth. It taught me that sometimes the story we tell afterward becomes the closure we never received. If you're watching this and you've loved someone who vanished without explanation, if you've been left with unanswered questions, if you've given your heart to someone who couldn't hold it, you're not broken, you're not unlovable, and you're not alone. Sometimes impossible love isn't meant to be healed. It's meant to be understood, released, and transformed into something greater. Thank you for being here, and thank you for letting me share the story behind Impossible Love.